Good afternoon from the European Parliament in Brussels. We are here today to introduce one of the newest members of the Renew Europe group. His name is Adrián Vázquez. He's elected MEP due to Brexit, so he's joining the family now. But he is also elected a couple of weeks ago. He was chair of the Legal Affairs Committee. Good afternoon, Adrián.
Good afternoon,
welcome.
David. Glad to be here.
For a lot of people or you at home, you may not know him because it's, as I said, he's a new member. But you've been already in this house in the European Parliament for many, many years. Can you please tell us a little bit what was your occupation before you joined Renew as a member?
In the European Parliament and in the Liberal family. The last 6 years I was Chief of Cabinet of the Ciudadanos delegation. Ciudadanos is the moderate and liberal Spanish party that I belong to. And I was in that capacity, and I was also developing all the European structures and relationship of my party, because it's a new party, with the Liberal family in Europe.
You were knowing basically a bit of everything. You were also taking a bit of the lead of the party, what it was the line to take, what it was a bit like to help also to the new members to actually settle down, because most of the members from Ciudadanos from this mandate are actually new. Was it easy to coordinate all this before you actually become an MEP?
Previous term there were only 3 members, so it was easier, and all the coordination was always done with Madrid, with the headquarters of the party, because you just cannot do something here that doesn't go along what we do in Spain. It has to replicate in both sides. And this new term, of course, because we are now 8 MEPs, so it's a bigger delegation, it's a lot of stuff that I was coordinating, so it wasn't easy, but all the members of my delegation, they're really top-notch MEPs, and it's quite good and nice to work with them. So it went smooth, I think.
And now is your time to become an MEP yourself, to also have your team that can help you, and you can focus on actually the committees where you are a member, but especially being the chair of the Legal Affairs Committee. For all those who's not familiar exactly with the vocabulary, what does the Legal Affairs Committee take care of? What are the main occupation or tasks of them?
Well, the Legal Affairs Committee is out of the 20 committees that the European Parliament has. Also is not one of the biggest committees. It's a key committee because it applies and interprets the European Union law. So everything related to European Union law has to go through that committee. As well, it has 2 or 3 other really important competences, like the immunities of the members. The House, has the capacity to give immunity to its members when they are doing their job. And when there is any state or court of any member state that wants to release that immunity, it has to go through the Legal Affairs Committee. So that's what is also very important. And at the same time now, Jury Committee or the Legal Affairs Committee has become one of the cornerstones committee when it comes to talk about the digital agenda, because in this term, the digital agenda is going to legislate about artificial intelligence, how the big technological platforms behave or work or sell goods and to consumers, and all those issues have to go through this committee. So it's going to be quite interesting term.
In the recent months, also in the previous mandate, this committee was also in charge of our data protection, and with a very controversial law on the copyright, and then with the introduction of the GDPR. How has this been implemented? Is this actually going now smoothly in this year?
Well,
or is there still a lot to do?
Previous term copyright folder was one of the most complicated folders that the Parliament passed. Actually, as you may remember, it went through the Parliament on its second attempt, not in its first attempt, because there was a lot of controversy. There was not a clear line what the Parliament really wanted and the political groups. So now it's still not fully implemented. Now the member states have to do that, and it's going to take some time to see if it actually works. But I wouldn't disregard the possibility that something on copyright again will come back to the Legal Affairs Committee, and we will have to get in depth again into that dossier, which is highly, highly complex.
Of course, as chair, one of the main things is for you to be aware and to be informed of all those dossiers. But what are your day-to-day or your weekly tasks as a chair? Which is, what are the main characteristics of your role as chair?
So the people that are watching us now, so they understand, a committee is like a small parliament. You have the big parliament, that here we are 705 MEPs, and it also has a presidency, which is composed by a chair and a few vice chairs, which they have different tasks, but basically what they do is they moderate the debate, they set up the agenda of the meetings, they can push forward to put some topics on the agenda that they feel they're important, and above all, they don't represent their political group interests. What they do is they represent the institution. So, for instance, when I'm chairing jury, I'm not protecting or defending my party or political group visions. What I do is defend the institution. And as such, what I try to do is to moderate the debate and to make all the political groups and its MEPs or members to go through the sitting in a peaceful and productive way.
Apart from being in charge of the Legal Affairs Committee, you are also a substitute member in the Agriculture Committee, which is actually one of the main ones that basically the European Union comes with. One of the main points is the CAP, the Common Agriculture Policy. What is actually this? Because there's a lot of people at home that may not be familiar with what is this exactly and how important is it for the agriculture and from the producers everywhere in our member states.
I mean, if you're a farmer, you definitely know what the CIP is. Basically, the CIP gets the bigger chunk or part of the European budget, because what it does, the CIP, is help our farmers to produce what we eat every day, basically, and they do it in trying to be respectful with the environment, trying to fight against climate change, trying to defend the biodiversity, to defend the traditional ways of producing eatables all across Europe. And the CAP has different lines of budget. There is 60% of the budget that goes directly to those farmers so they can actually continue with their everyday jobs to produce crops or to produce cattle or meat or any product that they may be working on. And at the same time, there's 20% of that budget that goes to somehow develop the farming system that we have in Europe, making it more competitive, giving more funding to our farmers to, for instance, invest in new technologies when it comes to process milk or dairy.
Or maybe to digitalize the way they
farms.
Produce and make it for export.
And the remaining 10%, and this is a little bit of a technical conversation, but is to regulate the market, because as you can imagine, the market when it comes to sell vegetables is very unstable, because if you have bad weather, or you have a catastrophe or a disease, your whole production goes down, and then the farmer gets nothing. So you always need that kind of backup money to help out the market to keep it stabilized, so everyone can eat healthy and good products.
Actually, related to this, in Renew Europe, we believe in rule-based free trade with many other third countries. How can we find that balance between helping and funding our local producers, our member state producers, but also facilitated the entrance of products from third countries? Let's say in Spain, we are one of the biggest producers of, I don't know, oranges or bananas. How can we find that balance that then these Spanish products or any other vegetables or products in anywhere else in the EU member states find a place in the market with the same prices or similar conditions with all those products that comes from third parties?
Well, that's a really good question, because right now, as you know, the European Council, the member states, they are negotiating the new budget for the next 7 years. And as I said, most of that budget is going to go to the CAP politics, to our farmers. And knowing that because the United Kingdom, one of the main contributors of the European Union, is not any longer a member of the European Union, it means that we're going to have less money, but we need to do more with less money. And that is going to affect directly to our farmers. And one of their main complaints is that because we have closed so many trade agreements with third countries, you can say Canada, you can say Vietnam, or you can say Japan, that we're working as well on the trade agreement, there are certain products that they're going to get affected. So we all know that international trade is good for international commerce, is good for the welfare state that we have in the European Union, is good for our products when they are competitive, because they are going to be able to expand their exports. But at the same time, always when you do an international trade, there are some producers that they're going to get affected. The best way to defend these producers is to make sure that those products that they are produced in a third country, they are actually respecting all the European standards when it comes to labor-related affairs, health regulation, sanitary conditions, and so on. So if we don't assure that the products coming from those third countries are not respecting all the European standards, but we make to our own farmers to respect until the last point of the regulation all those standards, that's not fair. So what I would suggest, and that's what we're pushing the Commission to do, is to be really thorough when it comes to revise all the security, safety, and health standards of products of third countries before coming to the European Union.
Okay. Thank you so much for more time. We will be following closely your role and the main topics that are in the agenda, as you were mentioned, that the jury committee will going to deal with. And all of you at home, thank you for watching. And you can just remember that we are also available in other platforms like on Twitter and on Instagram. So please follow Renew Europe and Ciudadanos Europa online for more information useful like this one. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.